Good morning. This is Trang Bo at the California ISO. Thank you for joining us for the Release User Group on October 31, 2023. Today's call and webinar will be recorded and published on the ISO website for a limited time. Participants are muted upon entry. Please unmute yourself via the WebEx as well as audio to make a verbal comment or ask a verbal question. You can also raise your hand and or put a message in the chat. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. As usual, we'll have our training update, and Cynthia is on to provide that. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, Trang and everyone else. We have updated this because we now have a date for the Transmission Registry Upgrade Training. It's scheduled for November 15th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So be on the lookout for that. And if you know that you have questions that you'd like answered in that training, please use the link on the Fall 2023 Pre-Training Release Survey to submit anything if you have specific things you want to make sure are covered in that training. As usual, I always do a plug for our Learning Center and our computer-based training. There are two relatively new trainings on there that you may want to check out called Welcome to the ISO, which used to be a session that we did every couple months, but now we have it on the CBT, and also Resource Performance Expectations of Dispatch and Operating Instructions. You'll want to take a look at that if you use ADS. Or anything like that. That is all I have for now. Are there any questions?
Before we go on, I also wanted to remind customers here that the Learning Center is a good resource for the training, as Cynthia mentioned, but also there are valuable resources, other valuable resources there, including readiness notes, and we have a couple new ones out there as well on the Learning Center. So those are referenced in some of the notices, but also good material to stay tuned to as well. Any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you for that, Trang. Also, there is the fall release training of all of the things that are going to be coming effective tomorrow. So if you have any questions, you can refer to the training on the Learning Center as well.
Yeah. Okay, a lot of good stuff out there. Any questions or comments at all on the training offerings and materials? All right, thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and move on to the release plan summary. So we have just a reminder on the release communication as we continue to wrap up and close out the market simulation officially for fall 2023, what that looks like going forward for release communication. For fall 2023 release, we are overall on track for the activation for tomorrow's trade date. You may have seen a notice published about that already for the intent to activate, and then we'll also publish a notice after the activation. And then the exception to the fall 2023 release is, of course, RSEE Phase 2, Track 2, which we'll continue to cover. And again, we'll cover it as part of the fall release as the deployments are shared. And then after the activation of the rest of the fall release, we'll track RSEE to Track 2 as an independent effort for activation in February of 2024. For independent 2023 releases, I do have an addition here for the ADS change to partial acceptance. I do have some slides on that, so I'll cover that in more detail when we get there. We have slides for variable O&M cost review. No changes since the last RUG update, but we can look at the upcoming milestones. We do have more details for the application delivery resiliency effort, and we want to spend more time to focus on the production API strategy and expectations and the different phases of that transition. So I have slides to cover that I'll go over shortly. The last two items we don't have specific slides for, so I want to give those updates here. So for operations notification system, we have met our internal readiness criteria to go ahead and with the implementation and production for ONS. So the deployment is planned for today for an activation tomorrow with the mobile app release on November 8th. And then you will receive notices after the activation also, just to close the loop on that. And then we have our TR system upgrade. So at this time, I do have a few updates to give on that. So just as a reminder too, for the transmission registry system upgrade, that again is a framework and infrastructure upgrade, and there is not functionality that's changing as part of that, more of a look and a feel, and that will be covered more in the training on November 15th. And then we do anticipate having the new TR system available in map stage for customer unstructured testing November 16th, and our production target is still December, so this is still an independent 2023 release with in anticipation of production rollout in December. And I also want to add that we do have in the queue, as we mentioned, documentation updates in terms of the user guide and other materials related to TR that will reflect those changes as well. So we look forward to covering what materials will be available for reference related to this upgrade in the upcoming training. Okay. So that was a lot of information for that. So I wanted to stop just specifically if there were any questions on ONS or TR, just because we don't have slides later on, so this is the time to ask those. All right, I don't see any hands raised, no questions in the chat, so I'll go ahead and move on. So for 2024 releases, we're not going to cover those slides specifically today either. We know that those are in the queue. Nothing's changed for the release plan of 2024 for Transmission Service and Market Scheduling Priorities Phase 2, Transmission Exchange Agreement, RSEE Phase 2 Track 3 for DR inclusion, Hybrid Resources Phase 2C, RIM scope, and then the CRR upgrade. So we won't cover those in detail, and we do have upcoming deliverables that we're working on making available to you to engage in those implementations. And then for future releases, we do have DAME and EDAM, and just a minor update on those for some of the settlements config guides for steps 2 and 3. So we'll briefly touch on those before we wrap. All right, I see Tanya's hand up. Please go ahead and unmute your line. Yes.
Hi, Trang. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Because I have to tap from my phone. Yeah, so for 2024 releases, so do we expect the scope might look very different in the Q1 of 2024?
Do you mean, are you asking if we plan to add things to this list?
Right.
So I have to apologize because, you know, obviously the focus has been a lot on the fall and then even further ahead for DAME and EDAM, but I do plan on getting more clarity for that, you know, by the next couple of rugs to be able to organize the 2024 releases to different categories that we've kind of spoken to for summer and independent and such. I plan on working with the teams to better organize our release plan for that within the next couple of rugs. So do I anticipate that it'll look very different? I don't think there will be a significant difference, but just more organization around the timeline, if that makes sense.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. I look forward to sharing more about that too in the next upcoming rugs. And then I have another question from Samraj Singh. Please unmute your line and go ahead when you're ready.
Coming to URL and API changes, part of the independent 2023 releases. So do we have the final cutover timeline for production?
Yeah, and if you will hold, I would like to go over that once we get to those slides, but we will cover that a little bit for the API. Okay, great. Thank you for your patience.
For the future releases, and for the future releases for DAM and EDAM, so is there any more details, like any other changes with respect to APIs?
Oh, I have not built that out yet. So, in terms of the API, what we do have for DAM and EDAM is a target to publish the tech specs, which will give you the details on which APIs are changing and how they're changing. And those tech specs are planned to be published starting the end of November. But similar to what I've done for the previous releases, I'll put together some material to show the full picture of the interface changes, including the API and the UI. But for today, I think the only update that we have is that the tech specs, just a reminder that the tech specs are planned to publish starting end of November. Okay.
And for the ADS changes to a partial acceptance, so using the same current version of the web service, it will work, or we need to upgrade the web services?
Nope, the API will continue functioning without any changes, and I have a slide to cover that as well. So these are all great questions. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yep. So we'll continue down with that, and then I have a comment from Grant. Yes, so there's ISO planning update the release milestone spreadsheet. Yes, I plan to do that. So give me a couple of weeks to, again, firm up the 2024 and beyond plans, and then I will update that release milestones document as well. Grant, I hope that helps. All right, and Chen, you still have a hand up. Do you have another question or comment?
No, let me address that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and move forward to the release communication. Again, so a reminder that we have a new functional environment drop-down for release, which is not a functional environment, but again, for release-related inquiries related to implementation or any topics for the release, you can use that in City now. This includes BRS comments, implementation inquiries, and anything not specifically related to market simulation. And then for market simulation, as I mentioned, for fall 2023 release, we have wrapped up that simulation. And so after that, we will no longer have the seasonal market simulation functional environment. So going forward, any market simulation cities should use just the market simulation functional environment. Okay. All right. Isaac, please go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Trang. So if we still have issues with the RSEE market sim, should we still use that market sim for 2023 functional environment?
I would. So that's a good question. You can start using market simulation now, and because as I mentioned, RSEE will be an independent effort, and so I would guide you to use market simulation. You don't have to change any of the cities that you already have, but just for new ones, just go ahead and just set them as market simulation. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Isaac. Chen, please go ahead.
Yeah, so with the structure change, we have RSEE tickets need to be resolved. So for example, for 2024 release, we just use market simulation or release. So can you help us differentiate? So we'll say if for 2024 release is BRS review, do we use release?
Yes. You should use the release for any inquiries not related to issues encountered in market. Yes.
And for 2024 market sim, you will not have a 2024 market sim other than just one big umbrella market sim?
That is correct, yes. We want to be able to comprehensively address market simulation issues, and with the understanding that, of course, we'll be able to flag and prioritize which cities are related to which project. But I think that, from an internal perspective, and then I think for a better market simulation experience, we want to comprehensively look at market simulation cities, because I think, as you know, and as we know, one issue that may be reported in the environment could have impacts to the specific testing efforts. So we really want to make sure that we're looking at the whole picture when it comes to market simulation to ensure success of unstructured testing, either initiated by the customers or structured activities initiated by the ISO.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. All right, I don't see any other hands raised or comments, so I'll go ahead and move forward to the fall 2023 release. So this is going to be the last time that you'll see all of these updates together like this for the fall. But I do want to call out some changes nonetheless. So for settlements config guide, we did have a couple of activities since the last RUG. You'll see that the pre-production draft config file was published on October 18th, and then the production deployment and generation of the final config output file did take place on October 25th, and you would have received the settlement-specific communication about that as well. So that is complete and completes our activities for settlements for the fall. No changes to the tech specs related to the fall release at this time. For market simulation, as mentioned, the only one that remains is going to be for RSEE Phase 2 Track 2, expected to start late November and go through December. And again, after this, we'll move to track RSEE's efforts, market simulation and production as an independent effort. So you'll continue to get updates on that just outside of the fall. And for production activation, you would have seen the notice of our intent to activate all of the features and functionality except for RSE for trade date November 1st. And again, we'll send another notice tomorrow to confirm the activation. And this does include the energy storage enhancements SOC implementation, which will also have a separate notice just because that one was not being tracked as part of the fall and was a carryover and an independent effort. So, so that covers the matrix, and I see Mike has a hand up. Please go ahead.
Hi, Trang. So just to be clear, the ESE logic did go into place, right, when the day of market was closed for tomorrow?
Yes, so the energy storage enhancements for SOC constraints. So I'll have slides to cover the details on that, but yes, so for the day ahead today, for tomorrow's trade date, that logic will be in place for trade date 11/1 going forward.
Okay, and then you're going to cover each of these independently?
Yes, I will, yeah.
Oh, question, thanks.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Mike. Okay, Tanya, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question specific for ESE Track 2. So since the data transparency, last I heard, if I'm not mistaken, ISO is going to try to bring the data transparency, maybe going to try by November 1. Do you have an update for that?
I'm sorry, when you're referring to data transparency, do you mean the real-time state of charge, visibility value? So I'm not sure that we made a commitment to implement that by November 1st. And if we did, I'd like you to give me a little bit more information, maybe offline, because our position is that we realize that that is an important and helpful enhancement that is in our queue for prioritization, that we need to get more details on to see the effort associated to that and where that falls in terms of priority and then implementation. So there was not a timeline for implementation of that as far as I'm aware right now. But if you are getting a different message, I'd like to understand more about that. So we have cities to track that enhancement request, and I think one of those belongs to your organization, and we'll continue to keep those open and updated with our internal discussions on the prioritization. But as of right now, we don't have an associated timeline, but we do have the consideration, understanding from customers that that's being requested prior to the summer of 2024. And we're considering that, that urgency for our customers, but we don't have a timeline committed to yet.
Okay. Sounds good. So maybe that will be a different talk on the enhancement prioritization. Just the FYI that you know that we do have a couple other issues. We also asked that to be, I believe it's in the common understanding, that will be addressed as a part of the enhancement for the OC undercurrent, opportunity cost undercurrent, and the average price average average price, in fact, affecting the excluding the FMM LMP.
Yes, I'm aware of that too. So I think that we try to be as clear as we could that we know with the current ESE SOC implementation that this is a very significant change that has a lot of opportunity for improvement past the fall. And, you know, we look forward to having those discussions with our customers and trying to understand, you know, what these enhancements are. And, you know, energy storage, as you know, is fairly new and it's complex, and this is a big pass at it, you know, this implementation for Track 2, but there's definitely a long road ahead of us in terms of, you know, more things to do. So
understand. Thank you.
But, yeah. And I think that the good thing is that we have cases to track this, and I think that's the preferred method is that we should have tracking for these, because some of these discussions will continue to carry on for some time and need, you know, need more collaboration. So,
right,
okay,
right.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead to the individual project slides. These will remain here for reference, the system impacts per initiative, and then also the system interface changes. So we do still have deployments going into production today. The last deployments will finish today in support of the activation for tomorrow's trade date. So, all right, on to make enhancements. So for make enhancements, all of our activities are complete and we are on track for the activation for tomorrow. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. Washington WAM, greenhouse gas enhancement, is in the same position. There are no remaining deliverables or changes, and we are all set with data loaded in master file effective for tomorrow's trade date. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, so then let's go on to RSEE, Phase 2, Track 2. And so I mentioned that we have deployed some of the shared code with this, with the fall release implementation. And what we have upcoming will be the market simulation late November through December, and then the production activation that's targeted for late February. So more details to come as we track this as an independent effort going forward in the next RUG and on. And I would also like to note too that we have structured scenarios that are published for this. There are 3 that are available on the release planning page. And so when we do plan to resume this second part of market simulation that includes the scenarios, we will also have a market simulation forum twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, to support our customers that are testing this effort. Okay. All right. And Chenyu, please go ahead.
Thank you for that update. So when are we expect to hear the next update, as when the code will be in environment in the map stage and the market sim code will resume? Is it's going to through a market notice, or shall we just expect the communication coming in the next TACO RUCO?
Yeah, so you'll note that the next RUG is in a couple of weeks on the, I think it's the 14th or so? Yeah, the 14th. And so, and then we have the holiday after that too. So what I will plan to do is provide an update at the next TUG, as we'll still be covering the associated, interface changes. So I'll give an update at the TUG, and then if there is some significant change, we can also publish a notice, but I don't anticipate that. So I would say just tune into the TUG on the 7th. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, and then for MCG, RSE slide says production activation February 2023. Yes, thank you. I do mean 2024, and I will update that. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on then. We just had BRS reminders of what was revised in the last couple of versions. And then we'll go on to ESE Track 2. So we had covered this a little bit already, but you know, here's the milestone view, and what should be marked as completed is the settlements config guide activities on the 18th and 25th. As mentioned, those were complete for the draft config output file and final config output file, as well as the production deployment set with effective trade date tomorrow, November 1st. So we are on for activation. We still have activation activities in progress for this right now to make sure that day ahead reflects the changes as well as real time tonight. I have a couple more slides here for track 2. So this was just the last BRS update for 1.5. So we talked about this already, but based on the discussion at the last rug, I did add a clarification here on the updates to the last couple of BRQs. Again, just closing the loop on that those clarifications and updates were made to reflect the fix that was identified in market simulation and already addressed there. Okay, so that's the only update here. So before I go to the SOC section, does anybody have any questions or comments on track 2? All right. Then we do have a lot of updates on SOC. I have additional slides here, so let's kind of cover what we have upcoming and what has been completed. So starting from the top, you'll see in bold, the BRS version 1.5 is available as of October 30. I did mention at the last rug that, and even before then, that we were going to sync up the BRS with our implementation of the 2-constraint formula, and that has been updated. So that's available for your review now. So we've covered, again, the change in detail in various forums and publications, and the BRS is just updated to be in alignment with our current approach. For BPMs, we have the market operations BPM PRR 1530 that was published and is in the final stage right now. And we also have upcoming BPM changes to market operations as well. So we have an internal draft that you'll see in a PRR soon that, again, will just reflect our implementation as well as refer to the attenuation factors. And I'll give an update on the attenuation factors shortly. So still some more changes coming for the BPMs, but again, that doesn't impact our implementation. That's just more to sync up the BPMs with what we'll have in production. Market simulation is completed, and then the activation for SOC constraints is on for November 1st, 2023. So let me go through some of the other slides and updates there, and then I'll stop at the end for questions. So this is no updates to this reference material or to this, but I do have some updates here. So you'll see in bold the last 4 bullet items I want to call your attention to. So, for the 19th in map stage, we did update the attenuation factors once more to align with the production attenuation factors that will be in place on November 1st. And I'll cover those in the next slide too. The production attenuation factors were published on October 23rd. Those are available now. And then again, the BRS was published on October 30th, and the market operation BPM revisions are in progress. So no changes to this slide, but I wanted to cover the attenuation factors. So as mentioned, the attenuation factors now, so they will no longer be published in the BPM as was the initial approach. The BPM updates are to refer to the CAISO.com location of the factors, and then also our go live approach for how we will implement and gradually increase the factors. So what you'll see on CAISO.com under Market and Operations Network and Resource Modeling. So in that file, you'll see the Q4 attenuation factors. Those are what we'll refer to as the full value. And then what we're doing for production, since we're just going live with this for the first time, is that we're actually going to take those full values and only use 25% of the full values for trade date 11/1. And then each month we'll increase that by 25% until we reach the full values for the Q4 attenuation factors. So you'll see 2 tables below. The table on the left is what's in that file, which is the full values of the attenuation factors. what you see on the right is the 25% of the full values. That the table on the right reflects what factors will be active in production for trade date 11/1 through 11/30, and then on trade date 12/1, we'll increase that to 50% of the full values, and then the next month, January 1st, we'll do 75% of the full values, and then on trade date February 1st, we anticipate reaching the full 100% of the values for the attenuation factors. And that BPM revision or draft that we have will reflect that approach too. So you'll see that once that PRR is published. And so are there any questions or comments on this? All right, Mike, go ahead.
All right, so this replaces the PRR process for updating these values, or is this just where you're publishing in place of publishing them in the BPM?
Yes, it's the former. So the BPM will just be updated to refer to this value, but that's where those values will continue to be going forward.
Okay, so each time there's an update, there will be a PRR process.
No, sorry, I might have worded that wrong. So the BPM update is going to say that the factors will be published at this location, and when they're updated in the future, they will only be updated on the KISO.com website and now result in a PRR each time they're updated. And they're expected to be updated quarterly. But you won't see it.
Is there, what sort of communication protocol is there when these are updated?
So that I'm not sure of yet. I'm sure that the team has thought about how to communicate that out. I assume that there will be some type of notice each quarter when we update for the next quarter, but I'm going to confirm with that team and just make sure that we have clear ownership, and then also the timeline in advance of or after those are published, but I don't have that information yet. Mike?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be important that the ISO communicate when in advance, enough in advance for everybody to update their own models. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I apologize for not having that information now. I know it's critical, but I will follow up on that. And then also I heard from, even from the summer implementation that the desired notice that customers had asked for was maybe about a week before those became active in production. And if, you do have suggestions and feedback as for a desired, advanced notice, then let me know. And I can also share that with the team. Okay. All right. Thank you. Alba, please go ahead. Alba, I see your hand up. I don't see you connected to audio. Okay, it looks like Alba just reconnected. Alba, are you there? You are on mute. So if you're on mobile, you can do *6 to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Using two phones. Sorry about that. So just to follow up on Mike's question was more, so the final factors are going to be brought in on February 1st. What's the timing of the first expected update of the factors themselves? Would that be March 1st, or would it be a quarter after that, because the factors will not actually have been used until February 1st, the full factors?
Yeah, so that is a good question too. At this point, I think that's good because as I mentioned, the factors should be updated quarterly, but like you said, we're ramping these up. So do we need a change for the next quarter? And that I'm not sure yet, but I'll reach out to the team and see when the next updated factors will be implemented. Okay.
And the assumption is it will always be done on the first day of a calendar month, just like you're doing now.
Yeah, and I will confirm that too, but I think so as well.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Alba. All right. Okay, and Alba, you still have your hand up, but I assume we're good, so I'm going to go ahead and move on.
We're good. It's
okay,
just too hard to take my hand down.
I know, it's a lot of work. Okay, so the last slide for energy storage enhancements just reflects through our summer and our fall and even this independent implementation, all of the different scope items for energy storage enhancements amongst the different tracks, and then where we stand. So you'll see that for, there's no tariff activities that remain. For scope, we implemented 2 items already, and then the remaining 5 items are going to be active as of November 1st. Okay, so this is just hopefully a helpful reference for you. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, Michael, please go ahead.
Thanks, Trang. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Great. I have a question on the BRS for track 1, the 1.5 version. I have a question on one of the BRQs. Is now a good time to ask that?
Yes, it is. I may not have the answer for you right away, but I'm happy to take that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's about the change made to BRQ 041. I noticed that the equation was changed to remove the attenuation factors for the initial SOC, and I'm wondering what is this initial SOC? What does it refer to? Is it the SOC at the start of the market run for the real time? And how often does this? So is it the initial SOC every time the real time market is run? Just looking for some more clarification on that.
Okay, let me just check and see if I have my market meet on that made that update. I don't see them. I understand the nature of your question, but would that be okay if I just followed up with you offline, Michael, on that? And I can connect you with our SME to work that out.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll forward that along. Okay, thank you. Okay, Carlos, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you. This is Carlos from SE. Just one question. I think I recall being impact to ADS because of the SE initiative. At some point, it was pushed along, but I don't see it here. Am I missing something?
No, you're not. So for ADS, there is no change needed for energy storage enhancements. I think at some time we talked about that, and that's actually one of the enhancements that's been requested to show the ED reason code. But for this implementation right now, what we have, it did not require any ADS changes. ADS will continue to populate the data that comes from the market without any changes. So we do have in the queue an ADS change for RSEE phase 2 track 2 to show the megawatt priority, the priority type, but again for ESE we didn't have a specific change. Once the market is updated to send these different EDs, then ADS will continue to process them without any changes to it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess my expectation was to see a new date for that upcoming change related to the ESE. So is that just completely canceled functionality, or is that future a future enhancement?
Yeah, it's an enhancement that we're reviewing. Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's an enhancement that we're reviewing. So upon, earlier discussions, we realized that it wasn't in scope. It was added as a regression requirement in ADS, and ADS is meeting the current functionality needed for what we had documented as a requirement. We realized that there's more visibility being requested in terms of the ED reasons. But that is in the queue with open city cases for the ISO to review and prioritize. So it's a future enhancement request right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. All right. So go ahead and move forward. Okay. We have hybrid resources 2C for metered quantities for hybrids, and that is on track for activation by tomorrow. Mike, please go ahead.
So Trang, I know you're on the email exchanges, but we still have not been able to validate this, and we believe the ISO is using the wrong values, and we can't get a response. And so now that it's actually live, do I just start submitting disputes or submit a new city ticket? I mean, this has been a month in the making.
Right. So I do apologize, Mike, for you having those issues. So what I would say right now is you have a city case open, and that if you're still having the issues, that should still remain open, and we'll work with you on map stage for that. But I would say for production, also, if you're having issues, then you should absolutely open up a production city as well. But I think that from what I understand, you still want to be able to get the issue resolved in map stage 2. So I would advise leaving that open and then also opening another one for production.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just want it corrected for production. I mean, what happens in map stage is somewhat, you guys aren't publishing the map stage anymore. So we couldn't see even if it was corrected. So I guess we're just going to see it in production. So, I mean, the sooner the better. I'd like to avoid just having to dispute this daily. So anything you can do to get a response or get action on that, we'd appreciate it.
Hi. I'm sorry, my line got disconnected. I'm back now. And I was saying, Mike, we don't want you to have to dispute or have a poor experience in production either. So I will escalate the city that you have open on our side, and then just look into getting you the support that you need for this.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, so let me go ahead and move forward. Okay, so that takes us to our independent releases. So we do have new material here for the AES change to partial acceptance functionality. This is new, maybe not new to some of you that were in the last TUG a week ago, last Tuesday, but I wanted to bring it to the reg audience as well. So we have an ADS change to partial acceptance functionality, and this is going to, again, so after the change, ADS will cap the partial acceptance megawatt value at the hourly DOT value. Instead of right now, it's currently capping at the megawatt threshold value or the RUC schedule. So we're going to update that, and this will result in a UI change right now, and then I'll cover that in the next slide, what that UI change will be. And then, as we talked earlier, there's no API change right now in the current API method for partial accept instruction. We'll continue to work without any change from the users. Okay. So for the UI, this is the change that you'll see, and you'll also get associated communication about this as well outside of the rug. So the hourly megawatt threshold column in the UI will be renamed to RUC schedule. And again, there's no change to the API service. So we published a text spec, A41, for this already, and that's available on the DAB site. And for the partial accept instruction, there's going to be a change to the accept DOT value, and it will restrict the partial accept DOT value to between 0 and the hourly DOT versus the, instead of the RUC or the megawatt threshold, which it currently does now. And for what we have upcoming, we have this for market simulation unstructured to begin today and then go through the 9th. And for production deployment, we're planning to make this same change for the limit as well as the UI change for November 15th at the earliest. But, you know, depending on the market simulation and other activities, we're giving ourselves a window for production from 11/15 to 11/22, but it could be as early as November 15th, and we'll continue to send out communication ahead of that production implementation. And one note is that there's no, there aren't any BPM changes or PRRs associated to this change, because what we're doing is we're actually aligning the functionality to what the BPM already says as far as limiting that to the HAS instead of to the RUC. And then Cynthia did put a link to the readiness note in the chat. And so again, that's available on the Learning Center for those that want a little bit more information now. And then again, we'll have other associated communication published. as we start market simulation officially today, and then as we confirm the production activation. Any questions or comments on this? All right, let's move on to variable O&M. Just a quick update here, no changes. We do expect to have we did ask for a FERC response on this by November 28th in order to make our data changes effective December 1st. Any questions here? Okay, now let's talk about the UI and API URL and IP changes with a lot of attention on production APIs, okay? All right, so I wanted to cover this now. I have a few slides about production expectations for the API. So the UI URL changes in production continue to go on, but we realize that the API changes will require more action from our customers. And so we wanted to kind of go through what the different phases are for the API transition in production, and then we can continue covering it in the TUG and the future RUGs too. So we will have a new set of production API URLs that are targeted to be available next week, November 6th. Stay tuned again to the notices that will be published on the when those will actually be available, but we're targeting next week. And then the production existing API URLs will eventually be cut over to the new infrastructure and IPs. So it's going to be a little bit different than what we did for MapStage, and I'll illustrate that in the next couple slides. The production new or temporary transition API URLs will at a later time be deprecated, so those will only be available for a short time. And then the IP range is the same as what we've been communicating for this whole effort. So you'll want to make sure that the IP, your network is open to our IPs. And then just again, the reminder that the production transition and cutover for the APIs will be different than how MapStage occurred. The new transition or temporary APIs will be available by next week, and there won't be any changes to the existing production API URLs for at least 30 business days from the availability of the new ones. So let me continue forward to kind of illustrate this a little bit more. So you'll see for MapStage and production, you'll see two different rows, and then I want to call your attention to how we're going to do this in production. So for production, we have the first column, what is available now on the existing infrastructure. These are our current web services and APIs now in the current format. So starting next week, we will make available a new set of API URLs for all of the applications that you'll see listed on the next slide. And that'll the change will be ws.prod.kyso.com. So all of those will follow that format. And so once those are available, customers can start testing connectivity against those new APIs and or cut over fully to those ws.prod set of API URL, because that will be on that new infrastructure that the other URLs will be cut over to. So that's what the first phase of the transition is, introducing these temporary URLs. The next phase, which is that third column under, it will be that the original URLs that you're using today for the APIs will be cut over to that new infrastructure after the transition period that's planned for 30 business days right now. And then the final phase will be our deprecation of those temporary URLs of the ws.prod.kyso.com, which I think I can add a different column here to spell that out. But so that's the different transition that you'll see in production, is that you're going to, that the existing URLs will still work but be cut over in the back end to new infrastructure, and then this new set of URLs will only be available for a temporary transition period. Okay, so just to call out more specific points, again, the IPs will change. So even on those existing API URLs that you're using now, even if you don't change the URL, once we cut over to new infrastructure, you will need to make sure that you can connect to the IPs on the new infrastructure. Again, we have the new certificate authority that we worked through in MapStage, so that's just a reminder there. And then we also have a reminder of the current API acceptable use policy. And then on the new infrastructure, we also have additional protections on CMRI, DRRS, and settlements. Then I'm going to go to the next slide. So the top table just is a reminder of the URL formats. And then below shows all of the different APIs, what the URLs currently are right now, what the temporary transition URLs will be, and then again, our final state will be to have the current production URLs that you're using today, but on new infrastructure, okay? I know that's a lot of information now, and we'll continue to cover this in upcoming communications and the TUG, but I'm happy to take questions. Tony, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
Hi, Trang. Just a couple things. For the new column, just a correction you might want to make under the map stage row. It's got the prod URL.
Oh, yeah,
so you might want to change that. But then just to confirm my understanding, so the temporary transition URL is basically using to test for the infrastructure, but that's never going to be permanent in production. So we would need to test with that, but it's going to revert to the wskaiso.com in production, and then make sure that the IPs are the correct IPs.
Yeah.
Have I summarized my understanding? Have I misunderstood anything here?
No, I think you explained it probably better than I did. So yeah, no, that's.
And then the only thing is, it would be very helpful from any kind of deployment kind thing we have to do to make the change, to have, more than just a couple of days notice, just because before the final change goes over. If we're doing some testing on the transition and then we need to go back, it's not a big change, but just to get it out to all the different customers might require a little coordination.
Understood. Yeah, we understand that all the customers have their own release and change processes that they need to work through, not have to rush through. So, okay, thank you, Tony. Yeah, we're happy to get your feedback. Okay, Krishanti, please go ahead. You are on mute, so you may need to unmute your WebEx. Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Now
okay.
I can, yeah.
So, perfect. So you mentioned in the second point, there is a new certificate authority, right? So we need to start working on the new certificate during the temporary transition phase starting November 6th. Is that right?
Yeah, you should. And so that's the same in MapStage. So if you did that for MapStage, you'll need to do the same thing. And that is tied to the new infrastructure. So you'll need to, so once we cut or make available those temporary URLs in the middle, then you can test that and make sure that your certificate authority is set up appropriately. And then once we cut over the existing URLs in the infrastructure, they will require that change.
Yeah. Okay, so that I'm sorry if I got this incorrectly. The temporary API, the URLs, right? They're going to be available in both the old certificate and the brand new certificate that's going to be set up. Am I right? During the transition period?
So that the temporary URLs, the ws.prod, they will require that new certificate authority setup. If you needed to make changes for MapStage on the new URLs, those ones will require that too.
Okay, they need the, okay. All right, we'll start working on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep. All right. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Jimmy, please go ahead.
Hey, Trang, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, just to verify here, based on these last two questions. So after the hard cutover for the new URLs in production, those new URLs are going to be ws.prod, right?
No. So
going forward after the cutover, are they switching back to the original URLs?
Yes. exactly. So the ws.kaiso.com, those will stay working, but they'll just be cut over to the new infrastructure that you're testing out on the temporary URL.
So as far as the URLs go, once it's hard cut over, it's basically the same URL.
Yes,
as we
exactly.
used to.
Yep,
Okay.
that's right.
And
Yep,
for the
just new
CA cert, yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I said just the new infrastructure, new IPs, right? And then the other, like I said, the extra protections on those
Yep.
3 systems. Yeah,
Yeah.
so all that.
Okay. And as far as the CA certs, we made the changes already for the map stage. Is the intermediate and root certs for that new CA cert going to be the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Trey.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so UI changes, again, there's lots of notices going out about that one, so this is just for reference. We'll continue to cover that at the TUG too, but I won't go over that in detail. And then for future releases, just really quickly, so I'm not going to cover a lot of these. I just want to go straight to DAME and EDAM, where we did have some updates here. For DAME and EDAM, as we continue our replanning for the shift from fall of 2024 to fall of 2025 with an activation from spring of 2025 to spring of 2026, we do have a couple updates. So we already talked about the tech specs starting to be published end of November, so that shifted out a month. And then you'll see in bold the second and third sets of charge codes for the draft config files. Those have shifted out also. So the second set is planned for March 26th of 2024, and then the third set, August 8th of 2024, and that aligns with what you see on the EDAM side as well. So those are my only updates for DAME and EDAM. We will queue up a production where we have our SMEs come talk about the BRS feedback that we've gotten for DAME and EDAM, and so we'll send out a notice ahead of that RUG when we'll have those discussions. That's all that I have for today. Does anybody have any final questions or comments? Chinyu, please go ahead.
Yeah, so for the DAME and EDAM, we have opened quite a few city tickets already. We expect the city ticket will be addressed. It's a specific for, of course, for BRS, and some of that it's a request KAISO to provide more clear detail on the BRS. So some of it we even stopped the review and waiting for KAISO to address that, and because we can see potential revision by the KAISO. So I would just like to know, when shall we see some movements from the KAISO on the response? Because some of that has been there for a month, over a month.
Thanks, Chinyu. So we have the city cases, we're reviewing them, and then, like I said, we'll queue those up for a future RUG. So I anticipate that those will be by January, that we can have all those reviewed and responded to, and then come to the RUG to give an update to all the customers about that, because I think that will be helpful to provide the feedback and developments to the broader group. So I would say expect for that by January's RUG.
So, okay, sounds like you will not have a separate CPG call other than just utilize the RUG as the place where you address the BRS questions. Yes.
That is our plan going forward, and our process for the releases going forward is that we want to strive to get the BRSs out sooner, have a way to organize the BRS comments via the release city case process, and then have a forward-looking RUG agenda and schedule where we can consolidate our responses and come and give an organized response to the feedback.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then lead to other question that I have. I mean, we keep hearing that, I believe it's the KAISO policy team. It's talking about the implementation, configuration of parameters, configuration discussion. I guess that it's truly, I haven't been able to get any answer from one single meeting where other than I'm trying to bridge where is the gap here? Because we hear one thing from the policy phase, then we did not see this built into the plan. Um, is there going to be one? Do you know? Or should we reach out to customer relations and ask them to see where the gap resides?
So I would recommend, Chenyu, for this topic, can you also create a city with the specific question related to the workshop and the information that you have received that is conflicting so far, and what clarifications that you're looking for, and then we'll track it that way to make sure that it doesn't fall into the cracks again.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and then, I want to also say that those city cases, I'm estimating that, again, we want to resume that discussion and bring that back as a whole to one of the January release user groups, but obviously those we're reviewing now, so we'll put comments in the cities even before then, but I'm just saying for the general conversation where we bring the updates to the customers, we'll queue that up for a RUG by January, but you should see some updates from us very soon in the cities themselves.
All right, yeah. So, I mean, we start to have a lot of city tickets, but we're going to continue to have questions as we are not, since now this initiative has been delayed a little bit for years. So we can also slow down on our side because we want to see, we don't want to have any duplicate work if any revision will be done. So we just kind of let you know that we also slow down on our side, but every week you shall see some city tickets. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for giving us the visibility of those and better tracking. Okay, good. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so again, our next RUG is on November 14th, in 2 weeks from now, and I'll talk to you at the next TUG next Tuesday as well. Thank you again for joining and for the great conversation. I look forward to talking to you again. Have a great rest of the day.